All right, how I made mine is I have a CNC and I was able to cut mine out. The reason I used the CNC when I first built this is because I made this a couple of times just to see if it would work. Now that I know it works, I'm gonna show you how to make it without the CNC. So you do need this groove. It's gonna be a little slot for this to slide in. So you saw how we traced this out. Now to cut it out, all we're gonna do is we have our router bit with our battery out, and then we'll have the bit slightly sticking out enough to where it'll touch or scrape the wood or whatever you make it out of. I recommend 3/4. It kind of gives it that strength it needs to kind of help stay straight. 1/2 inch will probably warp a little bit on us. So 3/4 wood. I'm using MDF because it's what I have here. Make sure anytime you cut MDF, you're using a mask. Even if you're outside, that stuff is terrible for your lungs. Make sure the bit is sticking out just a little bit. What we're gonna do is create a block, like almost like just a square around this. And the reason we're doing that is because what we're gonna do is get that bit and the line we just drew, we're gonna have it touching the inside of it, but right at that edge. And so when we block it out, like I'm gonna put a block out here, and then when we start routing out the center, it's gonna go line up exactly where we need to for that block, and we're gonna do it all the way around. You'll see a little bit more once I block it all out, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what we're doing. We're gonna block it all around so we can kind of route out this whole centerpiece, and it'll give us a slot where our router will fit in perfect, nice and snug. Key, it has to be snug. That kind of give us that safety, that a little bit of more safety than if we just had it sitting on top. All right, let me show you. So I'll probably do the sides first, and I'm just using scrap wood. So I'm gonna get it's barely sticking out. This is the edge that we're going for. So I'm gonna sit it on the inside of it, but where it's touching that line. I'm gonna sit this, make sure my router's straight on there, and I'm gonna do it at the front and the back to make sure I'm even. So even there. All right, so this is good. It's just so it doesn't go anywhere. And you can use smaller pieces like this. This is just the scrap I have left over, especially since I have like a big gap right here. It's just easier with these bigger pieces. Same thing, lining the bit on the inside. That'll work out. Let's do the back first. So I'm putting it towards the back. Put this towards the back. Right there. That's good. I'm gonna mark this just so it doesn't move. Line that up again. So let's line this up in the front. I'm gonna put this right at the edge. So that should work out. One of the main tips I'm gonna go over that you're probably gonna hear me go over and over again is the main thing with routers is you're taking out very little. This tool can be dangerous if you're not used to it. These tools are not meant to stick out like a jigsaw and cut a bunch. No, these are great tools, but you have to only take a little bit at a time. I think like I wouldn't even recommend. With my bigger router, the most I would take off is 1/4 inch at a time, but it's a bigger router and I have a plunge and a lot more grip on it. Very little to start off with, and then you just slowly, it has a little dial here. So what I normally do is I'll put it down and then I'll dial it down till I kind of feel the board lift up. Once I feel this lift up, then I know it's barely sticking out, and I'll start routing that out. And then you can lower it a little bit more. Boom, 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 little bit more, little bit more. I'd rather take this down in 3 or 4 passes, feeling nice and safe, than trying to take it out with one pass. That's not going to be safe, and these things have a lot of turning power, so they can jump out of your hands. So definitely be safe. It takes a little bit more experience, a little practice with it, but again, once you have that, it's a great tool to use. Helps out a lot, especially when you're making circles and stuff, and this is almost an irreplaceable tool once you get that experience with it. Definitely take off a little bit with it at a time and you're fine. Always wear your mask when you're cutting MDF. Dangerous to the lungs. So you never want to start a router with the bit touching because it'll just take off. So that's why you see me lifting, and I'm going to slowly lower it into place. So I pulled the bit all the way up. Take out the battery. I have a little bit of play, but that's pretty good in there. Since there's a little bit of play in here, it's fine because I'm going to show you the example, but when you want to do it, you want to make this as snug as possible. So what I would recommend is cutting on the, cut the inside a little bit closer and bring it in a little closer. So when you try to measure it again, take this off, put it in there, see if it fits. If it fits snug, you're good. If you need to open it up just a little bit more so it goes in, you can kind of have an idea. Draw it with your pencil and know, okay, I just need to take this much more off so it fits snug. You have a little bit of play, but I don't feel like cutting more MDF. Let me show you what we're gonna do next. We're gonna cut out the circle. If we see our example here, right? We have to leave a little bit of spot for this 1 inch right here. Because between 1 inch and the blade is where we cut, so we just gotta cut a little bit off for here, just enough for the blade to split through. Yeah, that's a little bit of play. So next time when you do it, don't do it all. Do it smaller and then slowly inch yourself out. So this is where we're going. I'm gonna put a paddle belt through here. So now before we cut it out, we're gonna draw some lines. It's gonna be a lot easier while it's on there. We're gonna separate all the inches to pre-drill our holes. So what you're gonna do is measure from the center of where your drill bit is out 1 inch, and that'll be 1 inch, and that's where you put your first hole, and then you're going 2, 3, 4, all the way that way. I'm gonna use this to create some pilot holes here. There we go. This is a countersink bit. This is what I'm going to use to kind of make the top of the hole a little bigger, so when we use the screws later, they'll fit in and they won't get caught on anything. You see how it's sunk? It's going to be out of the way. That's what you especially need here, so it doesn't get in touch with the actual base. So it can sit here and it's not bothered. It's sunk underneath. Don't laugh at my chicken scratch. So I'm sitting at the bottom. It's already set, it's touching this. So now I just want to go just a tad little bit. So lift it up and go one lone. So now I can feel it. We're not flush. So I'm barely touching it. So that wooden block worked a lot better than when I even had that 3D printed part. So definitely, I probably recommend just like, what is this, like a one by two, and just a clamp. And this clamp is pony clamp. I got it from Lowe's, but it's like a quick release, has a good grip, so definitely makes it a lot faster. And that worked out good. Let me talk about the thing that kind of threw me off last. I don't have a tremendous amount of experience with the router, but you do basically know one thing. They're meant to cut one way. It's just not advised because you kind of have less control. Spinning this way, you're cutting off pieces and you're fine. But then when you come the other way, it wants to kind of come off. And that's what was happening when I was going the other way. I completely forgot about it. And then I thought, well, maybe since I'm only taking off a little bit, it's not gonna do it. So I was trying to fight the router, trying to keep a straight line, because the router wants to dance. I'm trying to go the straight line, and yeah, that did not work out. I messed up so bad on the other one. So messed up so much I had to flip it over to redo it, which, if you do attempt this and you realize, dang, this guy had to do it twice, yeah, it's a lot. So I was mad that day, and I just came back the next day and redid it, just because it wasn't gonna be good enough. But now I know, and so I'm letting you know. The router is meant to cut one way, so since we flipped our jig around and we're cutting this way, it's cutting the opposite way, and it wants to dance a little bit. So all we're gonna do is keep the jig the same way. Since we were going this way, all we're gonna do is we're gonna come from the bottom and we're gonna come up, and we're still going the same way, and it should give us a straight clean cut. If we cut the opposite way, try to come down the same way we did before, we're gonna have the same dancing problem. So I'm gonna show you on this one. I'm just gonna flip the mini one over and show you how we do it. So I already flipped it over. So all I did is flip it over. So now we're at the bottom, right? So now this way we're gonna be coming up. It's the same way. We're gonna measure from here. We're just gonna start from here and meet it. And I was a little scared about not being able to, like, it not working out right. But as long as your edge is clean, you shouldn't have a problem. And I did the whole one on the other one, and it came out clean. So definitely take it slow if you want. Just kind of ride over it at first, just to make sure you're lining up. You can measure it out, but let's just see what happens. So all I'm doing is finding the center of this, and I'm putting in the center of that. I put the router to hold there, and then later on I make sure it sits right in the center. If it doesn't, I'll fix it. I'm gonna make sure we're straight, right in the center. So now are we lining up? Yep, I'm sitting right in there. So now I'm not gonna fight this coming down, because it's gonna want to fight with me. So I'm gonna come up this way. So went pretty good. Two that I kind of rushed a little bit. I kind of messed up a little bit, and I tried to fix without just, I was like, I could fix it a little bit. Made it worse. So always take your time and like really reset up. I just kind of wanted to show you a quick example on the smaller side of how using that jig is the same example of the CNC one I made, and how they're gonna have the same basic concept and they'll work the same. And anything like this, what's good about these walls is you can just get like a little sander, and a sponge sand, like a little sandpaper might be a little difficult, like a little palm sand or something kind of helps out a little bit, and you soften these edges and you're not going to see any of that stuff. So definitely just a little sander, and looks good. And definitely it varies on the bit that you use, the kind of shape that you want for it. Some people use the, like, what is that, like a little flute type of design, and it kind of gives it more grooves. Some use the rounder grooves where it looks almost like pipe. Some people go straight through. They all look pretty similar. I've done two. I didn't do that round over one, but it's gonna have the same basic concept. All right.